On my channel, we've talked a lot about Thomas, which arguably is the most recognizable locomotive in media culture, though he's far from the only. It's almost wintertime, so one good example is the Polar Express. But today we'll be talking about another locomotive, one that, if you're like me and many others, holds a special place in your heart from childhood. Yep, we're talking about the Hogwarts Express. Not just that though, the locomotive that became the Hogwarts Express, arguably one of the most infamous trains in modern history. I know this seems pretty random, and for any hardcore Harry Potter fans out there, I have to apologize now. I can't personally say that I'm really that. I've always been a train guy, but more that than anything. It was the train that made me like Harry Potter as a kid, but my wife is a huge Harry Potter fanatic, and through her I gained a whole new appreciation for it. And today I thought it'd be fun to dive into this locomotive in a way we've never done before. So with all of that being said, hit the bricks at full speed, pack up your owls, and let's get ready to leave platform 9 3/4 for a magic teenage castle school. This is the history of Olton Hall. The Great Western Railway hosted a fleet of many powerful, beautiful, and unique locomotives. Olton Hall was no different, but at a time not really anything special. The engine itself being a Hall-class locomotive, and like its brothers and sisters quite the workhorse, with a wheel configuration of 460 and a weight of over 75 tons. Being built in 1937 in April at Swindon Works, she was numbered 5972 for the GWR, and then sent to South Wales for work, where it remained until 1951. Not much of note happened at this time, but eventually, she was fitted with a 3-row superheater at Swindon, and following this was allocated to, and let me apologize now, I might butcher this, Lyra Traction and Rolling Stock Maintenance Depot. The depot itself is and was operated by the Great Western Railway, and is mainly concerned with the overhaul and daily servicing of their fleet. Its last shed allocation was to Cardiff East Stock, before it was withdrawn in December 1963. At this point, it was sold to Woodham Brothers Berry for scrap in 1964. Over 297 withdrawn British Railway steam locomotives were sent to Berry Scrapyard, and after a relatively short life, all seemed as if it was done for the Olton Hall, and many of the other locomotives it found itself with, though things weren't all bad. Many of the locomotives, 213 to be exact, were rescued for the developing railway preservation movement. Many of the engines saw new owners and new lives either on display, running on heritage lines, or finding a new home entirely. Olton Hall was one of these engines, though her post-scrapping run was a bit more intriguing, and that's what we'll get into now. In 1994, Olton Hall found herself on the move, this being to Carnforth NPD for restoration. She had been sold to a man named David Smith in May of 1988, and would see her first steaming since her initial selling for scrap in 1998, 10 years after her purchase. 4 years later, she would make the appearance we all know her for, in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But there's more to it than just screen appearances. In the Harry Potter films, the locomotive is depicted pulling the Hogwarts Express, a fictional train that's made up to 4 or 5 British Rail Mark I coaches. Scenes were filmed at King's Cross Railway Station, the Glenfinnan Viaduct, and the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, along with internal scenes on board the train itself. When filmed, Olton Hall carried a Hogwarts Express headboard on the smokebox, featuring the Hogwarts School crest, and the same emblem is featured as a part of the Hogwarts Railway sigil on the tender and carriages. It retained its number from the GWR of 5972, but with alternate nameplates fitted, naming the engine Hogwarts Castle, and the livery it wore was completely changed. For the movie, it was painted in a crimson livery, a non-standard color, as traditionally the GWR used green. But what if I told you Olton Hall wasn't actually the first locomotive to wear this livery? To promote the 4th Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Southern Railway West Country Class Locomotive 34027, Taw Valley, was temporarily repainted and renamed. However, the locomotive was rejected by film director Chris Columbus for looking too modern for the film, but it carried the name and color for some months afterwards. The renaming as Castle has become a bit of a railway preservation joke. It's often known as the Hall that thinks it's a castle, as the Hall class of locomotives and the Castle class of locomotives are actually different. The reason a Castle class wasn't chosen from the start was due to there not being many left around, and the people who preserved them likely wouldn't be okay with them being completely repainted and used for other things. So the easiest alternative ended up being Olton Hall. In 2015, the locomotive was put on static display, this being at Warner Brothers Studio Tour London, and will be displayed there until the Warner Brothers lease on the locomotive from West Coast Railways expires. It's sad we won't likely see her in steam until then, but there are rumors of her soon-to-be restoration, whenever that lease actually expires, though I couldn't find much information on it myself. If anybody can confirm such in the comments, that would be great. There are actually 3 full-size replicas of the locomotive, as 5972 Hogwarts Castle, and these are found at Universal Orlando Resort, at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. 2 were found as a part of the Hogwarts Express train ride, and the other is a static exhibit in another area. There are also a few other static models at other locations, for example in Hollywood and Japan. But unfortunately, that more or less sums up Olton Hall's work as the Hogwarts Castle, a career I'm sure nobody saw coming for it, but one that I'm still happy the locomotive got to go through. And believe it or not, there's still a little bit more to this story. Now that I've told you about her work as Hogwarts Castle, let me tell you about her non-Harry Potter work. "5972 is sometimes used for work other than its Hogwarts duties. In May 2009, it was temporarily moved to, and again, fair warning, Gloucestershire Warwickshire Railway. And in July 2009, it was based at Tyseley Locomotive Works for use on some regular Shakespeare Express trains, which were run by Vintage Trains during the summer. It returned to the Warwickshire Railway during their annual Wizards Weekend event in 2010, and in late 2011, the locomotive was on static display in Hyde Park, London. In June to July 2014, it worked 2 final Wizards Express rail tours from Manchester to York, before unfortunately its mainline certificate had expired. And like I said before, in 2015, the locomotive was put out on static display in London, where since it has remained, and will remain until the Warner Brothers contract is through with. Crazy how they can take the steam out of the engine, but could never take the magic out of the identity. And though anymore she may not hold her own power, she holds much more through having a special place in many people's hearts. And hopefully this video has given you a little bit more information on the locomotive itself. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. It helps let me know that you guys want to see more videos like this, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. There's always more train stuff on the way. This video and many others was put on Patreon before it was released publicly, so if you guys are interested in supporting me and the channel, consider checking that out too. Each tier has its own set of perks, and you'll have a lot of access to behind the scenes content and, like I said, early content, and that's linked in the description for anybody who cares. As always guys, thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.